ethnically divided societies, what we find is that second chambers are a good forum to represent the voice of minorities at the center. You could have a situation where, take the case of Syria. You have a region in the north which has a strong Kurdish population. Now, potentially in a future decentralized or federal Syria, these Kurds would have potentially autonomy in their area, where they would give also autonomy to other groups that live in that territory. But really, autonomy is one thing. What about their voice in Syrian politics? Right? So these Kurds could then be represented in a second chamber. But not only that, you could have a situation, as it is done in some countries, where your second chamber also ensures that not only the Kurds from Kurdistan and Syria, but also other groups in Kurdistan and Syria are represented in a second chamber, whether it's Arabs, whether it's Syriacs, whether it's other groups who live in the territory, could be represented in the second chamber, and also say, look, we represent a territory which is ethnically and religiously very diverse, and we speak on behalf of all people of that territory. So all of a sudden you could have an Arab from Syria, Kurdistan, sitting in the second chamber in Damascus, who doesn't speak with an Arab voice, but speaks with the voice of an Arab from Syria, Kurdistan. Absolutely, in homogeneous societies, two-chamber systems fulfill kind of three key functions. The first one is they contribute to democracy, the subsidiarity principle. Right? This idea that you have decentralized decision-making, so territorial units that provide autonomous decision-making for regions, states, cantons, but also these regions, states, cantons have an influence at decision at the center. Right? So I know my voice isn't only heard by my region, but my regional government, my regional ministers have a voice in the center as well. So it contributes to subsidiarity, to local democracy. Second key function is it's another way to separate powers. Right? While we know the traditional horizontal separation of powers between an executive, legislative and judiciary, we have a vertical separation of powers in federal systems, and we separate further the legislative branch. We say we don't just want one chamber. No, we want another voice in decision making. We want another actor who has different priorities, who's also democratically legitimate and has another voice. So the whole decisions are more inclusive. Think about our discussion from a moment ago. It includes minority voices, which otherwise it might not. So you're talking about, in terms of the separation of power and inclusiveness, to make better decisions. The third function of second chambers in more homogeneous societies is scrutiny. Decisions are just scrutinized more. You have an additional institution that looks at all the laws and says, yes, we agree, or no, we don't agree because we have different priorities. So you have not only the separation of powers, but you also have who oversees decision making, who makes sure you make good laws. And another actor scrutinizes them, another actor with different information, different knowledge, because regional representatives often know the situation in the region better. Think about federal states dealing with the corona crisis. Right? Often the representatives from the states and regions know the situation much better in their state and region. And so when the center takes decision, having these people involved can be invaluable for good decisions. To say we do not just need a decision, think of Germany, that works for Berlin or for Munich, but we also need to keep in mind the decision works for Eastern Germany, where in many parts you have lower rates of infections. Or it works for Western Germany, where you have lots of big cities and close areas and higher rates of infection. So finding this kind of fine-tuning and scrutinizing decisions to make sure the decisions work for everyone is also invaluable.